Good afternoon, all. It's a warm welcome to today's planning committee. And the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Yeah, from Councillor Paulette Smith, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, are there any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests? No, I got one.
Yes, Chair. I'm declare a personal and prejudicial interest in item 1 on the schedule, land Upper Bank, Pentrequeith.
Yeah, same here. Thank you. Okay, any others? No. So, right, item 3 then is to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting as the correct record. You see that's page 1 to 4. You see page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Somebody move that.
Yes, I move, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 4. Sorry. Item 4 then. Any items for deferral or withdrawal? No, Chair. Nothing. Thank you. So item 5, you see there on page 5 is the Commons registration. The application for the removal of land from the Register of Common Land at Manningscleugh Common. And Jonathan, that's over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. This is quite a short report, really. The item concerns an application which has been received from Welsh Government to amend the Register of Common Land by removing an area of 50,862 square metres from Register Unit CL53, which is Manningscleugh Common. The land in question that you're considering today actually forms part of the M4 between Pontllew and Pontedilais. The land was compulsory purchased by the Welsh Office back on the 26th of June 1973. And when the compulsory purchase order was made, the land ceased to be common land at that time. After this, to be formally removed from the Commons Register, there are legal procedures which have to be followed, and these are set out in your report. So it's quite a short report, technical matter really for you to consider today, with a recommendation that the land be removed from the Commons Register and the application be accepted after following the statutory consultations which were carried out and no representations were received. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 2 speakers here. First is Councillor Evans.
Thank you. Jonathan, just a query. Was the land exchanged in respect of the land that was taken? Was any land exchanged back to the commoners?
No, it wasn't.
I thought I read in the report it wasn't, but I knew. Why was that?
It's because it's a highway that the legislation doesn't require an exchange of land in this case. So the Act doesn't require exchange of land. So it wasn't done in the 1970s, and it doesn't need to be done today.
Can I just query that, because I find that a very unusual answer. The Llanelli bypass, which is about 30 years old, certainly had to exchange land, and it had to exchange land. It took 25 years for the council to do it, but they eventually did it about 5 years ago, since I've been the councillor. So that was for the Llanelli bypass, which is a highway. So that was common land taken, compulsory purchase order.
I obviously can't comment on what happened in Llanelli.
It's not in Llanelli, it's in our area. In Kingbridge, going through from...
Well, the legislation that was done, the 1946 Act, does not require, in this case, because it was a compulsory purchase order, does not require that the exchange of land takes place.
Okay, well, it's an anomaly which we've just got to deal with it. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't suppose Jonathan knows the answer to this, but I'm just wondering why it's taken nearly 50 years to actually take this off the register.
Well, the short answer is that the council can't do anything until an application is received. And so, although the compulsory purchase order was in the 1970s, it took until 2018 until the Welsh Government made the application. And then there was a lot of toing and froing with plans and which legislation to use, which might come under Councillor Evans's query. But basically, until the application is received, the council are not in a position to do anything.
Oh, I understand we have to wait for an application. The query is more towards the Welsh Government more than anything else. But given that they obviously are doing a stock take of common land, which should have been deregistered, are we expecting anything similar to this regard to this road scheme or other road schemes?
Not that I'm aware of. I'd have to check with the actual officer who deals with these. I can certainly find that out for you and report back at the next committee.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Des Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. Of course, we used to have a subcommittee that would deal with these issues, rights of ways and common land, village greens, all that sort of thing came to a subcommittee, which we seem to be getting virtually no business at all these days. I don't know what happens to that. We used to have a fairly full agenda when the committee met, but this could have been thrashed out then. So who does this land revert to?
Well, the land, it was Welsh Government purchased the land by the compulsory purchase order in the 1970s. So it's Welsh Government's land.
Yeah.
So it will be for the Welsh Government now to offload it or sell it on or whatever use they want to put to it.
Well, it's part of the M4, the land. So
is it so it's only the strip that the M4 crosses
and the surrounding land? Yes. So it's the M4. So it is a bit of an anomaly what we're asking you to do today, especially after all these years. But it's just regularising the situation in respect of the land, because it isn't actually common land anymore once the compulsory purchase order was made. So this is just regularising it and following the correct established procedure to solve. As Councillor Black said, there may be other matters, so I'll certainly check and see if there any more of these are due to come back before you.
Okay, I can understand why there'd be no exchange of land, because it was compulsory purchase. It's different if the application was coming from the owner of the common land, such as we quite often get. Duke of Beaufort owns tracts of land, doesn't he, across our area, and from time to time there are certain sections are needed for something else, and then they exchange pieces of land. So it's understandable from that aspect. But yeah, this there's nothing we can do really, is there? There's no point in refusing the application. So so I move we accept it, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, you see, members, it's been moved that we accept the recommendation that the land identified is removed from the registry unit Moneyclew Common. Somebody second that, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. So, okay, take a vote on that then.
Yeah, I'll call the names out as usual. Councillor Cyril Anderson.
For.
Peter Black.
For.
Phil Downing.
For.
Will Evans.
For.
Mary Jones.
For.
Mike Lewis.
For.
Des Thomas.
For.
Linda Tyler Lloyd.
For.
Mike White.
For.
And Paul.
Yeah, you for.
Thank you. That's 10 for, none against, Chairman.
Very well, thank you. Carried. And then item 6 then is the provisional TPO in One Island. You see that on page 18. The report starts. It's Alan.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Alan.
Good afternoon, councillors. This report is to seek the confirmation of TPO 679 around Rock House in One Island. It was put on as part of the land was being cleared by the landowner, and there's significant concern from the local residents about loss of trees. So it covers, I think, individual tree, a woodland and an area. We've had one objection from the landowner who's worried about future maintenance, but I feel that it's a proportionate and reasonable constraint on the land to ensure the trees are retained in perpetuity.
Okay, thank you, Alan. We got one of the ward members first wants to speak on the item. Is Councillor Wendy Lewis?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to make a few points on this objection to the TPO. I wholeheartedly agree with Alan Webster on why there should be a blanket TPO on the woodland, as it will protect the local visual amenity, and as residents have been deeply upset and traumatised by the destruction of the land with no warning whatsoever. And it has also affected flora and fauna, because as it stands now, the area looks like the Gobi Desert. I see the owner has said about making the land accessible by putting the rights of way in the right place. Now it's been flattened, and that there were dogs' mess and people walking everywhere on his land. Well, I would say that's been like it for over 30 years, and I feel it's the owner's responsibility to separate his land by fencing, etc., from the rights of way if he feels it's been affected. So hopefully the recommendation by Alan will be upheld.
Okay, thank you. We got Councillor Anderson, got your hand up there?
Yeah, it's just a technical thing. Every time somebody's speaking, your mics there are playing havoc with it. That's why I've been muting you, and it's coming through clear then when somebody's speaking.
I wondered who was doing that. Thank you. Okay.
Turn down, perhaps.
Anyone else got a hand up? No? Okay, well, you can see the recommendation there on page 18, that the tree preservation order be confirmed as a full order, yeah? At the moment. It's a provisional order. See, we will take the vote on that then. Thank you.
Yeah, you can see the recommendation on page 8, and everyone. Councillor Sarah Anderson,
For
Peter Black,
4.
Phil Downing, Will Evans, Councillor Evans, Mary Jones, Mike Lewis, Des Thomas, Linda Tyler Lloyd, Mike White, and Paul Lloyd.
Yeah, 4.
There we go. Unanimous again.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. And then we move on to another TPO on item 7, which is at Caswell Road. You see that on page 22 of your reports. Alan again.
Thank you, Chair. TPO 680 was served during a planning application being considered on the site. It was the applicant was being a bit reluctant to provide tree information, and 2 of the trees were preventing their original design. So it was felt that following receipt of their tree survey, which indicated the trees were of moderate to high quality, that they should be protected to prevent them from being removed prior to determination of that application. Since then, that was done before I had a chance to visit site. Now, having visited sites, their tree survey seems to be rather inaccurate, and 4 of the 5 trees are quite poor rather than moderate to high. So the recommendation is to confirm the TPO only covering the first tree. I think there's clear evidence that that tree is under threat from the applicant and objector, because prior to discharging their tree protection conditions on site, they demolished the existing house, and you know, there were no controls in place to protect those trees. You know, the 5 trees at that time. So I think this is proportionate.
Thank you. Councillor Des Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure where this particular site is, but the general area, there are a lot of mature trees, and the practice currently of people purchasing older homes and demolishing and rebuilding is quite rife at the moment. It seems to be, I don't know, a cost-effective way of achieving a site in that particular area. I'm interested in the comment that other trees in the neighbourhood are not included or do not have TPOs on them. Should we be looking at a wider view and with the idea of putting TPOs on many of the other trees, because there are some significant trees in this area, and it would be sad to lose them.
Yeah, that refers to part of the objection that they were looking at the trees immediately adjacent, the houses immediately adjacent to that site, where they have removed trees over the years, and ideally perhaps we should have protected those many years ago to stop that happening. There are, as I've said, quite a few protected trees once you start looking a little bit further away, you know, not too far, within a couple 100 yards. But yes, you know, we are always trying to work out where trees will come under threat, and you know, where we can proactively protect them. You know, there's the reason for looking at the threat is, you know, we can only do so much. Also further down the road, we've got conservation area where they are protected in the short term, and we get wind of people wanting to remove them and can protect them in the longer term if that's what's needed. But I take your point, and you know, we try and look at that where we hear of threats occurring.
Thank you, Alan. Out of a matter of interest, how many people do you have assisting you, or are you a one-man band in?
It's just me. My manager Jeff Saywell covers me when I'm on leave.
Okay, so that's not easy then, with the number of trees that we have in the locality.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, the report's got a bit of an anomaly. When we look at the recommendation, it's asking us to confirm the order with the omission of trees T2, 3, 4 and 5. But when you look at the appraisal on the summary, it says the trees must be retained as part of the approved plans. And the appraisal actually says the TPO was served to ensure all 5 trees were protected. So we're contradicting ourselves a little bit.
It perhaps does seem a little bit contradictory. The planning consent says that those trees have got to remain, but we were going on their tree survey, which said that they were, you know, B category in the categorization method. Now, if what is also conditioned is a landscape plan, if they come in with a landscape plan saying we'll remove these and replant with new trees, which will be better quality and you know, in the medium to long term better for the area, in my opinion that would be better. But you know, I think looking at when we should apply TPOs is when the trees are a good quality, and I don't feel that trees 2, 3, 4 and 5 are of that quality. So that's why there's that anomaly there. That's why I've mentioned the landscaping condition, and we can get some replacements if the owners want to remove these trees and replant.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Mike White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Come back to point Councillor Thompson. Alan, have you got a register of the TPO trees? And if so, when was this last updated? Are you give any idea on that?
It's well, the working way we deal with the TPOs is using the global information system, the GIS system. So that's when people contact me, that's where I give them the information from. That's where people can check that the trees are protected. We did provide councillors lists of TPOs and awards, which I'm in the process of updating and sending out again. Hopefully most should be up to date, because I also send councillors the proposed TPOs as they come up for their comment if they wish. So ideally they could put them into the same folio as the ones we provided previously. But you know, we all sort of miss things at times, so that's why I'm going to update it and send them out again at some stage soon.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Well, as I say, partly because I thought that, you know, if we did have a list that we could refer to, but obviously how often it would have to be reviewed, you know, especially where we are seeing lots of the new and big developments coming up across the city.
There's, you know, as I said, it's like a live document as such, because you know I'm reviewing TPOs and making new TPOs, you know, all the time. So that's why the GIS system is the best source of information for a list as such, and it's shown on the map then of the county.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Councillor Will Evans.
Hi, Alan. Just a point of confirmation, please. Looking at the summary, condition 6 of the approved consent requires a landscaping scheme. So does that mean if we get rid of the TPO, as it stands at the moment, they're covered by a TPO? If we remove it, is that scheme still enforceable?
Yes, because that condition is linked to their planning consent. So that's one of the conditions they have to discharge.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. I can see no other hands wishing to speak yet. No, so you can see the recommendation there, members, on page 22, that the TPO be confirmed with the omission of those 4 trees, T2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, we'll take the vote.
Yeah, Councillor Cyril Anderson.
4.
Peter Black.
4.
Phil Downing. 4. Will Evans.
4.
Mary Jones.
4.
Mike Lewis.
4.
Des Thomas.
4.
Linda Tyler Lloyd.
4.
Mike White.
4.
And Paul Lloyd.
Yeah, 4.
Again, unanimous.
Yep, thank you very much. And then we move on then to agenda item 8, which is the determination of planning applications under the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990. And the first item there, item 1, is at page 28, and that's Applebank. And Andrew.
Chair, I'm leaving now. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, we call you back in, Councillor Black.
Yeah.
Chair, can I come in a second, Chair?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a temporary.
I was in
temporary emergency.
Down in?
Yeah, I was in 2 minds whether I should declare an interest. As you know, I know the developer.
Yeah.
Only because he's developing in my ward. So I think I should declare an interest, but not pecuniary.
Yeah. Just a personal interest, Councillor Downing.
It's a personal interest, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Likewise. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Andrew.
No worries. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to refer
Chair, can
members.
I just come in a minute, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Evans. Did I might have made a mistake, but I understood the chair declared a prejudicial interest in this, or am I wrong?
No, just a
Personal.
personal interest.
Oh, personal, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'd just like to refer members to the update sheet on this. As I said, there is an error noted on the front cover sheet on page 28 of the agenda. I'll cover it as part of the first slide in the report, in the presentation that we're going to run through. Thank you. So, as I said, this is an application for a variation of condition to extend the trigger point for the construction of a permanent access at Upper Bank in Pentrechwyth. The application is being reported to Planning Committee as a Section 73 application, whereby the original application exceeds the committee threshold of 2 hectares. So, as noted on the update sheet, this is a Section 73 application, and under statute, there's no requirement to submit a red line application boundary with it, because effectively it's renewing previous permissions. So the site boundary is the same as the original 2006 boundary, as shown in black and white on the plan. The plan that was put on has just been included in the top right-hand corner, just to show that is actually the permanent access location. So again, it's not far off, but it's not actually the application we're currently considering today. So just as a brief reminder, 149 dwellings have been permitted under the original scheme, and a further 107 have been approved next door, partly including some of the application site, and there are further schemes in with the authority at the moment under consideration. If you can go to the next slide, please, Ian. This is a Google aerial image of the site, so you can see that the site's under construction at the present time. There's a temporary access already in situ, so that's noted as Vale Street on Google, and you can see the location of the permanent access shown slightly to the north of that. If you can go on to the next one, please, Ian. So this is the most recently approved temporary access plan. The most recently approved trigger point for the temporary access was the 30th of April 2021, and the applicant sought to extend this to the 281st dwelling. But because this is outside the scope of the original outline permission, we've had to consider another trigger point which is time related as per the previous one. So the trigger point is to complete the permanent access is proposed until the 30th of April 2022. On the plan, the red hatching shows the pedestrian pavements, the green hatching shows the pedestrian crossing, and the blue shows the extent of the previously approved temporary access road. So there've been no neighbour objections to the proposal. Highways have no objections following further dialogue and clarification with the applicant. They have commented that the applicant has provided a construction programme for the permanent access and has begun the Section 278 process. The junction design is at technical approval stage, and Highways have commented that they accept that some of this delay was outside the control of the applicant. So the application has been accompanied by a transport note, and on this basis there are no objections raised, subject to a revised condition regarding the permanent access works being completed by the 30th of April 2022. So since the previous application to amend the trigger point to provide the permanent access was approved at committee, the temporary access which connects the site to Nantong Way has been upgraded to provide a signalised pedestrian crossing, and a dedicated pedestrian footway has been included. So these enhancements have allowed the temporary access to operate safely as a temporary solution pending the construction of the permanent access. And just as a Section 73 application, it's also considered necessary to tie this permission, should members be minded to grant approval, to a deed of variation to the Section 106 agreement originally approved back as part of the original outline application. So the recommendation is one of approval, subject to Section 106 and the conditions contained in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Members wish to speak? No? Any hands up? You can see the that's the case then, is it? Oh, yeah, there's a hand up somewhere. Councillor Mike Lewis.
Yes, just one point. At the very end of the presentation then, Andrew, you mentioned the 106 and tying it into the 106. Can you elaborate a bit on that, please?
Yeah, of course. So the outline planning permission, as part of the section 106, there was the trigger point for the provision of the permanent access was included in that section 106 agreement. There's been, recent case law, there's been various cases that say if you agree to a section 73 application, you should always tie via a deed of variation that new permission, so that was what members would be granting today, to the original agreement. So the original agreement in this respect just needs to be updated to refer to the revised trigger point subject of condition 8, so the 30th of April 2022.
Yeah, can I come back there? By doing that and by moving the goalposts further now, are we delaying any payments linked with the 106 to the council?
No, the only thing that will be changing as part of this deed of variation is the specific provision about when the access road would be provided. So that's the only thing that's being changed effectively.
Okay, thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. No one else wants to speak? No? Okay, well, you see the recommendation there on page 35 is one to approve. We'll take a vote on that.
Okay, Councillor Cyril Anderson.
For.
Councillor Phil Downing.
For.
Will Evans.
For.
Mary Jones.
For.
Mike Lewis.
For.
Des Thomas.
For.
Linda Tyler Lloyd.
For.
Mike White.
For.
And Paul Lloyd.
Yeah, for.
Yes. Unanimous, Chair. So I'll just call Peter back in.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's back in, Chair.
Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you all. And our final item then, item 2, is that 47 Gower Road, which you find on page 39. And it's your case, Liam?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
With this one. So this application relates to a proposed change of use of a commercial property at 47 Gower Road at Sketty Cross. It's in the district centre. It's just outlined in red there on the plan. Proposal is to change from an A1 retail use into a wine bar, so that comes under A3. The reason the item's on your agenda today is because officers regard the proposal as being a departure to one of your LDP policies that relates to the loss of ground floor retail units, policy RC9. As set out in your report, the key issues relate to the loss of the retail unit, the impact upon neighbouring occupiers and highway safety. So we just cycle through the slides there, and you can just see the location. As you can see, it's those it's the building there in the centre of the shot, ground floor, former retail use. So we go through these Google images, actually some sort of interior shop, and then the next slide. Then this is a photograph taken by the applicant, I believe. So it just shows us the context there in terms of location. So dealing first with the principle of the use, policy RC9 sets out that non-retail units at ground floor level must not give rise to an unacceptable loss or dilution of a retail frontage or have a significant adverse impact upon the vitality, viability or attractiveness of the centre. So in this case, the Sketty District Centre. So part of the policy assessment for this type of proposal is a requirement to undertake a minimum of 12 months marketing of the premises. So that's really just to market it on the open market to establish if there's a retail occupier that could come forward. So in this instance, the property's been vacant, we're told, since April 2020. There's no evidence of marketing over that period, but that obviously that coincides with the COVID pandemic and the series of lockdowns. So that's the context there. Notwithstanding this, the purpose of the policy is to ensure that the vitality, viability and attractiveness of the centre is retained. So the property doesn't lie in an important retail frontage as such, but it's actually secondary frontage. You can see a lot of the shops there to the left-hand side of the unit are actually hot food takeaways, and it's the other side of the road then that would be the main retail area in this particular centre. So it's not considered by officers that a wine bar use would bring any harm to the centre in terms of the loss of a retail premises, and it would actually bring an occupier at the time, you know, where this unit could remain vacant for a significant length of time. So alongside this, it's of note that Welsh Government introduced temporary permitted development rights recently. This allows new A3 uses in centres to utilise existing A1 premises on a temporary basis of 6 months. So in effect, this particular use could be undertaken for 6 months on a temporary basis without actually needing planning permission at present. But it's not clear to us yet whether those temporary rights will be extended further by Welsh Government. But nevertheless, this scheme is for a change of use on a permanent basis, so that's how it's been assessed. So on whole, as set out in the report, officers feel the principle of the use of the development is acceptable. In terms of other issues, residential amenity is one issue there covered in the report. We've acknowledged there are some flats above the premises. No objection has been made by pollution control team. However, we've suggested a condition for soundproofing of the property, as well as a condition that they're controlling opening hours, which are in the report. In terms of highway safety, well, you can see the context there. You're on a busy junction, busy crossroads, existing commercial unit, which will obviously attract existing visits. Given the wine bar use, it's not likely that visits would be wholly made by car. Conditions proposed, however, in order to specify the nature of the A3 use, on the basis that if we didn't restrict it, it could be used as a hot food takeaway, and that could bring materially different use in terms of people obviously stopping to pick up a takeaway, which is not the appropriate location, we feel. So subject to conditions, we feel it's an acceptable form of development. You'll note at the start of the report that we've had to refer to an advertisement of the application as a departure. So effectively, if we're saying it's a departure to a policy and the plan, we've got to advertise it. So that advertisement period runs from yesterday. So it'll run for 21 days. So our recommendation is of approval. If we receive any further objections to this application, we'd report it back to a future committee. But otherwise, we'd be asking for delegation to issue an approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that none of the Sketty councillors indicated to speak, but I just make the point. I understand about the soundproofing inside, but it is an extremely wide pavement. There are flats, as you said, above. Next door is a church, and there are flats above the church as well. And then this is going until midnight every day, and you can't use the premises from midnight to 7 AM, I think it was. So you've got a lot of hours where it can be used. Now, at the moment, the Welsh Government are allowing people to put tables and chairs and things outside. Is there anything we can do to stop that? Because people congregating outside, talking, laughing, whatever, it travels up and to the flats above. So I am a bit concerned about the outside. It's a really wide pavement there, and I think we should put some kind of condition in that they can't put any outdoor furniture there. But that's, you know, I'm presuming I'll get an answer now that they're allowed to do it because of COVID and the Welsh Government will allow us to.
Okay. Just as before I bring anyone else in, I did invite, I always email every ward member, and one replied and said they've not got an issue with it. Okay, thank you. Did you want to answer that first, Liam, and then I got one or two?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, we have to consider the application site, so that is the red line. Now, that doesn't obviously include the pavement area, and I think it would be an unusual scenario for us to restrict that on the basis that Welsh Government actually allow it to happen without needing planning permission. So we'd have to have a very good reason to put such a condition on. And as I mentioned, this premises could be used anytime now for this use. It's an approach Welsh Government are taking to be flexible, to allow some growth, to allow businesses to happen, so that these centres do get people in. And I think it is the right location for this type of use. If it was in a residential area per se, then obviously we'd be looking at it differently. But, thank you, Chair.
So go on. Yeah.
Just to clarify as well, Councillor, that they will require a licence from highways, and highways will control the hours in which the tables and chairs can be out on the pavement. So there will be control under other legislation as well.
Matthew, is that what you were going to say?
You summed it up very nicely.
Okay, all right. Did you want to add anything, or?
No, it's quite correct. It's adopted highway, so any tables and chairs will be subject to licence. I mean, during the pandemic, we've been encouraged to grant licences and reduce the fees we charge. However, they still require a licence because we still have to indemnify ourselves if people are operating on the public highway.
Okay, though, thank you. Councillor Black.
Yeah, actually, I was going to make a very similar point to Mary. I think that there could be an issue, not so much with table and chairs, but with people gathering on the pavement outside there and they being very close to a very busy junction. And again, the officers have said there's very little they can do to stop that or control that, but it does seem to me to be a potential problem given the width of that pavement and the situation of the wine bar. But you know, obviously that would just depend on the management of the wine bar. And I suppose that's going to be a police matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Linda Tyler-Lloyd.
Yeah, I can't understand why why the councillors haven't objected. I want to say that I agree with Mary. I lived in Mumbles next door to a flat which was having parties all night. I had to move because I couldn't go to work because I was so tired. So I can imagine that the noise of a wine bar with people living above would be potentially very disturbing. Also, I can imagine that it's going to attract a lot of people to outside, like it's already been said. And I get my hair cut just along the road, and I have to leave 3/4 of an hour earlier because I can never park. So how parking in Sketty as well is dreadful. So I can just see a lot of difficulties down the line. You're going to say to me that it's not for us on this committee to talk about that. It's for traffic or whatever. But I just feel sorry for the people who are going to be living above. And I just want to say that although it looks attractive to have a wine bar there, I can imagine there are going to be a lot of difficulties, but it's not my problem. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Sorry, was that me, Chair?
I got Councillor Mike Lewis first, then Councillor Thomas.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Des.
That's all right, Mike. Carry on.
Right. Sketty Cross. A few years ago, they closed the public house opposite, which was the Bush, and that's been closed. But directly on the other corner, there is the Vivian Arms, and that's a venue for bands and duos every Friday and Saturday night. So there's quite a lot of noise being generated from across the road, and we haven't had any big complaints about that. And so I can't see there's any overuse by granting this, especially when sort of there's a rise in online shopping and a decline basically in retail premises, and it's as was stated earlier, it either becomes a takeaway or it becomes something that the community can use as a focal point. As for noise, I don't think there would be objections on that, because a wine bar is what it says. It's a wine bar. It doesn't spill out onto the pavement like some of the pubs do. So I'm quite happy with giving my blessing on this application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, well, yeah, Mike has said some of the things I was going to say. It is a wine bar, and people talking and perhaps a little bit of laughter outside, I don't think is going to disturb the flats above. The noise of traffic at this junction is probably would be, far louder than any human voices are going to make, and I would assume that the flats have double, if not triple glazing, etc. As for car parking, obviously we don't want to encourage people to use cars to go wine bar anyway, and there's a sufficient catchment area around the bar to cater for people walking back and forth. And at the end of the day, this is an option. Doesn't mean to say wine bar is going there. It's an option for the agent, isn't it, and the owner. But of course, we do need to address the possible ramifications of it. But I cannot see anything objectionable to this. Wine bars are operating on Wine Street below flats and residential apartments as they are on Newton Road in Mumbles. No apparent difficulties. So I will be supporting it also.
Yeah, and the noise levels are conditioned there anyway. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, I've got no concerns really regarding the application for the wine bar. My only concern really is this question of whether they want to put tables and chairs outside on the pavement. I'd like to see the on screen, if you can put the photograph of Sketty Cross on that again. It's a wide pavement, that's already been mentioned, but road safety wise, am I right in saying if they want to do that, or there are railings there, I wasn't sure, I can see the railings there now, and bollards, so that's a safety protector, isn't it? So will they have to apply to us if they want to do that, or can they do it by, what's the technical term they use? Without planning permission, would they be able to do it?
Permitted rights.
Yeah, permitted rights. Will they be able to do it under permitted rights?
Yeah, Chair, temporary permitted development rights to allow that use to happen. However, as has been mentioned, they would need a licence from the council because it's highway authority land. So although it wouldn't need planning permission at present, its use would be controlled under the highway licence.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, was there anything else you wanted to come back on, Leah? Right, no other hands up.
I think it's generally been covered, hasn't it? We've covered noise. As I say, there is a condition on there relating to restriction of noise between the uses, so that will somewhat help. And we've controlled operating hours, note the concerns, but we feel it's acceptable on this particular case. Thanks.
Okay, I got Jonathan put his hand up there. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to emphasise what was said earlier. The highways issue is a separate legislative process, but the Highway Authority would have to consider highway safety and the individual premises before granting a licence. So it wouldn't be automatically given, even if there are permitted development rights. Highway safety would still have to be considered first. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thanks for that. It's clarified. I have no other hands up to speak then, and perhaps we can now move to the vote then, which you see on page 47 is to approve is the recommendation.
Yeah, Councillor Cyril Anderson. 4. Councillor Peter Black.
4.
Phil Downing.
4.
Will Evans.
4.
Mary Jones.
4.
Mike Lewis.
4.
Des Thomas.
4.
Linda Tyler Lloyd.
Abstain.
Mike White.
4.
And Paul Lloyd.
And 4.
That's 9 for 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for that. That concludes the business for today. And our next meeting is the 3rd of August, again at 2 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.